Okay.
Yeah, hello there. Hey,
I
jeez.
love it when Rob gets
Oh
angry.
my, what is going on with my microphone now? Why am I so loud?
Oh, Rob, the
What
universe is
is
conspiring
going
against you.
on? Okay, so welcome to behind the scenes of AV Rant. This is the most behind the scenes of ever. I don't know what Google changed. I
Uh,
changed nothing on my computer and there was no Windows update. So Google changed something as far as I'm concerned behind the scenes where now I can't show my
Chrome is totally
live.
different now, right? Chrome looks
Huh?
totally different now. Doesn't Chrome look different for
Yeah,
you?
everything's all bloody different. I can't do my live camera feed and also record my camera feed apparently. This is not a thing that can work right now. We'll have to figure it out for next week. Anyway, you can hear our voices. This is going to be the video. Is logos switching back and forth. Thrilling as that's
And
going to
I
be.
tried to make my logo be. Oh wait, what did I do?
Why is
Uh,
my voice showing up so loud? I
I
didn't.
try. I tried to make my logo be AV Rant as well, but it kept switching back to Fearless Mode Climbing. So
Well,
now you
that's
just know who's
fine.
talking.
Exactly. I show up as the AV Rant logo. I believe it's what I
You
believe
do
will
worry
happen.
you
This is
until
brutal.
it's showing
Anyway,
up. It's showing up as something else.
for
It'll be
anyone
like a little
watching
My Little
slash
Pony.
listening to the behind the scenes version, you are definitely going to want to look for the completed video version this
Or
week
you'll be able to
because
see the pictures for sure.
that'll actually be a video as opposed to this nonsense. Man, God, they just like to kick podcasters around, don't they? Oh, let's change something. Why would you possibly need things to work the way they've worked for all that? Why do I have an incoming video call? Who the hell is trying to call me? From you?
I didn't do it.
I don't know. I hung up on you anyway.
I
Dear
haven't done it.
sweet
Oh, it could
Lord,
be one
this
of the.
is
It could be the kids in the other room. It could be my kids. It could be my wife or kids in the other room trying to close that thing.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
guess I don't have to switch to you.
No,
Mr.
don't do that.
Fearless Mobile Climate.
It's already me.
Apologies for what this behind the scenes is, but man, oh man, this is behind the scenes. This is what happens sometimes. Okay, we're super
All right,
late.
let's go.
Tom,
Let's
get
go.
going. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Go. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with.
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Yeah, did Google change something behind the scenes?
Oh, jeez.
If you're looking
Don't
at,
worry about it.
I know, yeah, whatever.
Don't
If
worry
you're looking
about
at
it.
YouTube, you want the completed version.
We already
It comes out
talked to
on
those
Wednesday.
people.
We did.
We
talked to
already
those
know.
But people sometimes listen to the podcast and then
But
go check out the video. So
of you may want to go watch the video, and when you do, you'll be able to see me in my. I got my new embroidered shirts,
yeah.
and I'm wearing one.
I can't
'cause I
even
went
see
to-
Tom right now. We can't
I
see
know.
each other this week.
see each
I don't
other.
know if that's going to affect anything.
I'm wearing it because I went to a civic, the local civic association's meeting, monthly
Uh-huh.
meeting. It was it's the first one I've ever been to, and it's probably going to be the last. But it was exactly everything I thought it was going to be. It was a bunch of people who essentially wanted to waste everybody else's time by
Yeah.
being angry about things that they are 100% wrong about.
Okay.
Like my wife's an engineer, right? So these people are really angry. There's a couple things going on in our neighborhood. There's a bridge that needs to be repaired. They're like, how
Yeah.
come it's not done? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you think they're going to do? Knock it down and build it back up in a day? Come on. It takes, this is government. It takes a long time to get
Uh-huh.
anything done. And the guy's super angry about that. My wife's like, and he's making all these claims about all this stuff. And my wife's an engineer. So she's stayed behind to talk to him. I'm like,
Ah.
I'm out. I'm out. You deal with the crazy people. I am out of here. And jeez, I mean, there's this like gaggle of boys that ride bikes around the neighborhood with no helmets on. And it drives me nuts, right? Not
Okay.
because I really care, but because they're not wearing helmets and I'm worried about their safety.
Mhm.
But I guarantee you there's somebody in this neighborhood right now who's ready to take up arms and string these kids up because they're not being properly supervised or whatever. I'm like, who cares? They're playing in wood piles on one of the vacant lots around the corner from my house. Let them do it. Just relax. Oh no. They're real angry about stuff around here.
That's how civic things go.
Yeah.
I voted
Not very civil.
in my local civic elections a week ago.
I know, I saw that.
There, I did that.
Yeah. We're about to have an election around here too.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for things. Not sure what. Probably whatever my wife tells me to vote for. But we'll see. All right. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. I fixed the login thing.
Ooh,
So
fancy.
now you can log in again. So
Nice.
good on me. I don't know how I broke
Website's
that.
coming along just as our videos break. Yay!
We are. Oh yeah, it's
always
a real
something
work
fun
in
around here.
progress. It's only been 600 episodes, but yeah, we'll get the website sorted eventually.
Yep.
Another 600 episodes, and it'll be just tight. It'll be Web 2.0 for sure by then. You can go to facebook.com/AVRant podcast. That's a good way to contact us. YouTube.com/AVRant. You want to contact us directly, it's Rob at AVRant.com. His Twitter is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at AVRant.com. My Twitter is at AVRant_Tom. So
there are people on our YouTube live thing right now furiously logging out and back in because they think something's wrong, I am sure.
Sorry.
I don't know if you just logged out, I guess you won't hear this, but no, this is the behind the scenes for this week. Sorry, folks.
Put a comment in there. Why don't you write a quick comment while I'm talking about
I'm not even going to touch YouTube right now. I can hear you, and I believe my video is recording locally. I'm leaving it at that. I touch nothing else right now. God.
Google. I'll do it. I'm on a Mac. A Mac's break. Hey, all you gotta do is plug a Mac into an alien spaceship and it breaks it. It's the Independence
That's right.
Day.
USB.
All right. USB, baby. the universal ports of all
universal
spacecraft.
That's right.
Right. All right. So we want to thank our listeners. The week to become a listener of the week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is by going to www.avrant.com. Click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That will send you to a PayPal donation site where they will take your credit card number or your PayPal information and give us some monies. So we want to thank Brandon for doing that this week. So thank you very much, Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you very much for the donation. We appreciate that.
Those will go into our coffers. Helps pay for hosting fees and other stuff. So we also want to thank our 73 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon's a service where you can sign up for a monthly take from your bank account and dole it out to your favorite content creators to help support them. So we want to thank our 73 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up, $1 per month is the minimum and infinity per month is the maximum. So thanks very much to our 73 patrons.
All we need is one of those.
One infinity
for 1 month.
Do it.
One infinity and we'd be set. We'd be a podcast a day. That's all we do. That's all we do. All right. If you can't support the podcast financially, we completely understand. But if you do think of a way to support the podcast, let us know, and we will mention you. So we want to thank Sean. Sean went with our recommendation and bought an RBH Impression R515 Center to go with his first generation RBH towers that he already had. Weren't we worried that it was going to be too big? Is that what we were worried about?
No, he was trying to find a 3-way center that matched his 3-way towers, and we're like, the new 2-way center will be just fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He says it made an incredible difference, and his wife loves how clear dialogue sounds now, even at lower volumes. Nothing better than a happy wife, he says. So he made sure to let RBH know it was our recommendation. So thank you.
Well, congratulations, Sean, and thank you very much for the letting RBH know.
In the news, the first IMAX Enhanced Ultra HD Blu-ray titles have been announced. And interestingly, they're also the first physical disc to use HDR10+. A Beautiful Planet and Journey to the South Pacific. Just sounds stunning.
I mean, those are IMAX things filmed with IMAX cameras.
I understand. I'm sure they look really good on the 35-foot widescreen, but whatever. Anyways, the audio is in DTS-X, and the inclusion of HDR10+ is somewhat curious since only Sony have been officially announced in the IMAX Enhanced display so far, and they don't support HDR10+.
They do not.
Whatevs. And Samsung and Panasonic are best known display brands that support HDR10+, but they haven't announced any IMAX Enhanced displays yet, but
I'm sure they will. I'm sure Samsung will. The fact that Samsung brought out quite recently a new sound bar that actually has physical rear speakers and upward firing drivers. So it's like they're doing the 5.1.4, but with actual drivers. They're not just trying to, pseudo sound it around you.
A second, man. You said physical rear speakers. I thought the sound bar had speakers pointing out the back. I was
actually wireless speakers you can physically put behind you, and those have upward firing drivers in them. So it's a true 5.1.4 setup with the upward firing drivers. But they support DTS-X, and I'm pretty sure that's the first Samsung soundbar that does. And of course, DTS-X is the sound format being used by IMAX Enhanced. So it wouldn't surprise me if that product and their recent TVs.
Look at DTS making a comeback.
Yeah. So
That
I
being
mean,
said,
basically,
I just
IMAX
bought.
Enhanced is like the anti-Dolby format. Because like, oh, you
I'm
got
okay
Dolby
with that.
Atmos and Dolby Vision. Well, we have DTS:X and HDR10 plus. That's what IMAX Enhanced is apparently. So
Okay, I'm all right with that. As
yeah,
long as
whatever.
all the displays do all the things, then we'll be fine. Yeah, I bought A Quiet Place on Blu-ray. I was gonna
Okay.
buy it on Ultra H, whatever, 4K,
Yeah.
but it was at Target and it was $22, $23 for the 4K,
Yeah.
and it was
Right.
on sale for 15 on Blu-ray. And
Okay.
Blu-rays has Atmos, so I
Oh,
was
okay.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
That's the main
out.
thing. Yeah. You
Yeah, that's
don't
the only thing
have
I
a.
buy it for. I don't have a 4K display anyways.
Yeah.
I
That's
buy
right.
it for the Atmos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, some comments real quick, or maybe just one, no, a couple comments. Nick wanted to highly recommend that headphone DAC and amp reviews being done by an engineer going by the screen name MR I don't know.
Amirm? AMIRM, anyway, all lowercase.
Yeah, whatever. I guess over on the Audio Science Review forums. So this is this guy probably doesn't get paid, right?
I don't believe so. I mean, it's just a
Yeah,
forum, but
yeah.
he's
So I'm gonna
taking
tell you.
measurements and doing all the things.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it when people do this. But the thing is, as soon as you start paying that dude, he stops doing it. It's so weird. So weird. It happens all the time, anyways. But hopefully he'll continue on. But he's posted reviews of many headphone DACs and amps, lots of units that get talked about on forums, but never get professional website reviews. And what Nick likes is that he measures their noise floor as well as their maximum output and distortion levels. Plus, he offers his insights on things like customer support and how they subjectively perform with the various headphones he has on hand. Nick thinks it's a great resource for anyone interested in some objective measurements of the many headphone DACs and amps out there.
Yeah, they look like reasonable reviews. The
Yeah.
measurements are such that, oh boy, is that open to misinterpretation by folks who don't really know what they're looking at. And I will include myself in there because I don't understand everything that was going on in those measurements. I understand some, probably enough just to be dangerous to myself and others.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely something people are going to be debating over without really knowing what they're talking about. But nonetheless, the objective measurements are there. It's good. He does put in comments.
Does he have any sort
clear
of
things up.
hierarchy that he can heuristical model or whatever they call it, that he could compare the these measurements from one to another, or he just measure each one?
Yeah, I didn't see like a table or something where you can easily do that. I think you sort of have to go through each one. I mean, he takes similar measurements for each thing, so at least you can compare that. And it's all being done with the same test equipment, so at least there's that. But in any case, we'll have a link.
I mean, the one thing I clicked on like randomly was the Google phones, the Pixel 3s are going to have the whatever dongle, because everything's going to have a dongle these days for the headphone, and he was dreading having to do that. So he figured out a way to plug it into his computer and test it that way. And I'm like, yeah,
introducing variables.
I don't know about that. I don't think you should do it that way. I mean, it may make no difference, but then again, it may make a big difference. So I don't know. So anytime I see stuff like that, I'm like, and it's an engineer.
Yes,
that's an engineer thing. And I don't mean this as any sort of slight. I just mean engineers solve problems. That's what they do. He's like, it's going to take me forever to measure this thing using my phone. I don't want to do it that way. Is there an easier way to do it? Yes, I can measure it using this computer. It'll be a lot faster. Problem solved. Boom. And then, the statistician in the back is going, hold on. Hand slowly raised.
Extra variable just got added in there big time. Yeah. But anyway, we'll have the link to all of his reviews, because he's got like his own sub page going on there over at Audio Science Reviews forums. So
we're not really
link
endorsing
on avrant.com.
Okay, I just want to say that we're not endorsing this person.
No, this is Nick who's recommending it. If you're looking for reviews of headphone DACs and amps that where you're not likely to find professional reviews of them anywhere else, at least it's something to go by.
Anybody take anything I just said as any sort of slight against the gentleman either.
Right, I mean, we are neutral on this. Neutral.
I spent a couple of seconds on his page and went, "Oh, that was a weird thing," and that was it. You know what I mean? That was it. So I'm not making any sort of value judgment about it. He could be the most accurate reviewer in the universe, as far as I know. So there you go. Bobby just wanted to send us a very nice email to thank us for all the help that we provided his roughly 12 by 12 theater and occasional guest room. He hopes that we keep the podcast going for many more years to come, and says he looks forward to listening every week. Are we shutting the podcast down? Is that an option?
Well, the HT guys have been threatening to shut down, so maybe that's caused the worry. Home Theater Geeks got canceled. The HT guys are like, if you don't pay us enough, we're going away. So,
wow, they didn't really say that, did they?
In not so many words, yeah.
Okay.
They're like, it has to be
I just want to say,
it has to be financially
I hope
reasonable to keep the podcast going when Ara's looking for a new job. So
that I understand that. And
yeah,
I mean, the
that,
guy's
yeah,
he's got a family to feed and everything, and
that's right.
and
It's a lot of
can be
time and
tough.
effort.
Yeah. So I hope they keep going, but if they don't keep going, I think that makes us the longest running AV podcast.
That
Pretty
would
sure.
probably be the case. Yeah,
I think that would be. Like, we can now start putting that at the bottom. That's our tagline.
we
And
survived.
if they come back, we'll have to put continuous, like in a little,
right.
little.
Well, we had a few months hiatus there. When
that doesn't count. That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
That was a sabbatical, not a cancellation.
Oh, hey, I was traveling between countries. Give me a
That's
break.
right.
I was also extremely angry. All right, PJ wrote us a few weeks ago when he had some plumbing work done, so he had unplugged all of his theater gear, and then he plugged his Denon X2200W back in. His HDMI outputs were all completely dead, and in full factory reset, did nothing to get it working again. We said it was time to call Denon, so he did. He sent it in for repair, but didn't hear anything for 2 weeks, so he started to get worried. Then, without any communication, he got back from work on Friday to find this FedEx guy waiting for him. Denon had sent him an X2400H to replace his broken 2200W. So the numbers went up, but the letters went down. What are you gonna do? So no idea what actually went wrong, but he's able to watch movies again, and now he can use the Odyssey Editor app. Not exactly great on the communication front, but a happy ending to the tale nonetheless. Yeah, I think that's sort of, I mean, you're really saying it to a third party. So Denon is just like saying, okay, we're going to send you this thing, fix it, or tell us that you can't, and then we'll send them another one. And all the communication is going on probably almost automatically between Denon and this third party thing. And no, they don't care that you don't know what's going on.
And in all, it actually did go exactly as what they say will take place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's fair enough. If they tell you at the beginning, here's what's going to happen, and ultimately the result is that, then you can't really hold that against them. So
no, but I mean, hey, you got a new receiver out of the whole thing.
Right.
That's great. That was a refurb,
upgraded model.
Wasn't it a refurb unit though?
B stock, yeah.
B stock, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
But that means they checked it out. So
yeah, and he gets a new unit with a new warranty.
That's right.
So
1 year, 1 year manufacturer's warranty. So that's
don't get any more plumbing problems. All right, Jared. Let's get started with the questions here. Jared says his goal is to get the best audio quality he can. Let's begin by describing Jared's room. Now, everybody buckle up because this is long.
But it requires it because it's an odd setup. So to understand what's happening, description required.
Okay. From front to back, the room is about 16 feet long. It's about 15 and a half feet wide, but the back of the room is a bit narrower since there's a jut in for the front door. So the front of the room is 15 and a half feet wide and 10 feet long, and the back of the room is 12 feet wide and the remaining 6 feet. Remember, 16 feet total in the longness. So the back is a little bit in. So I guess it's in on one side, I would imagine, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's in on the right-hand side. That's where the front door comes in. So.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a window on the right wall, and the front door is on the right side of the back of the room. Okay. So on the right wall in the back of the room, there's a door. On the right wall at the front of the room, near the front of the room, there is a window.
Correct.
Okay. And there's stairs going upstairs on the back wall next to the front door. So you walk in the front door, you turn left, and there's going to be stairs.
Correct.
I'm guessing. Okay. And then there's some pictures here that nobody can see but me. And then I scroll. Okay. On the left wall at the back, on the left wall near the back is an open doorway into the kitchen. And then on the left wall at the front is another open doorway also into the kitchen. So there's two doorways into the kitchen, and they're both open. Right. So it's a left wall with openings to the front and the back into the kitchen. There's a fish tank on that left wall as well. I guess not in between the doors.
Correct.
For the openings. They're really not doors, openings. So they've got kids and pets. So since the only way to get to the front of the room is via the doorway, get to the front of the room is via the doorway to the kitchen, they've got a wicker room divider to keep their dogs from getting into the front portion. So this is the front of the room. So the front portion, the front opening is closed off by a very permeable wicker little stand thing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not like blocking the air movement whatsoever. This is in no way closing off the open doorway in terms of air movement and sound movement, but it's a physical barrier to keep the dogs out of the front of the room and knocking over speakers.
Okay. The couch goes across the room, and it's just in front of the front door. And there are dual subwoofers, SB13 Ultras, to either side of the couch. So there's no way to walk from the back portion of the room to the front portion of the room unless you climb over the back of the couch. You have to walk from the front door into the kitchen and then come through the opening to the kitchen, past the wicker thingy, into the front of the room to get to the seats of the couch. So that's how the wicker thing works.
Yep.
Right?
So if you came in the front door, you'd walk straight ahead into the kitchen, go through the kitchen into the other kitchen entrance, and that would get you back into the front of the living room because there's subwoofers on either side of the couch completely blocking the walkway.
All right. Everybody got it? These dogs must be tiny if they can't get over these subs, but whatever. Jared has a ton of bookcase shelves to hold his many, and there's only too many, but I'm going to add many DVD and video game cases. There are shelving cases on all four walls anywhere there isn't a doorway or a window. He has also made or modified a bunch of absorption panels and base traps. The front wall has 2-inch thick insulation with a 3.5-inch air gap behind it. Then the TV and speakers are in front of that, giving him about an 8.5-foot viewing distance. The back wall has 2-inch thick insulation with a 5-inch air gap behind it. And the upper edge, where the left wall meets the ceiling, has a 2-foot by 6-foot panel straddling the upper edge where the left wall meets the ceiling. So straddling that corner with 4-inch thick insulation inside. And the upper edge, where the right wall meets the ceiling above the window, has a 1-foot by 8-foot panel straddling it, also with 4-inch thick insulation. So he's got about as much as you can possibly get, and he's not even done. Then he has 2 real tri traps, which are tetrahedrons in shape. They're triangles, basically.
Triangle pyramids.
Yes. And you stick them into a corner, right? So one of those is in the upper right corner, created by the jut in for the front door. The second tri-trap is on the front wall on the other side of the opening, so it's actually in the kitchen.
That's right.
Okay. This is so stupid.
Man, oh man.
All right. So if you guys don't have a perfect mental picture of that, welcome to the club. I have no idea what this. I'm looking at.
You can see actual pictures that were taken if you come to youtube.com/AVRant and look at the completed 2-hour video version.
Not today, you can't, because right now all you're seeing is Fearless Mobile Climbing logo talking to AV Rant logo. All right, so fun times. Let's see here. Okay, but I have to scroll back down because I was looking at the pictures. Okay. So Jared likes to build stuff. He wants to know if adding any more absorption will be beneficial. There aren't many open wall spaces left, and he doesn't really want any panels on the ceiling. Dude, you kind of already got them on the ceiling, but whatever. Although he's willing, if ceiling panels will make a big improvement. So what do we think? Should he add more panels, and if so, where? Jesus Christ, dude! There's like no room left in this room. This room is making me claustrophobic just looking at it.
I really don't think you need them.
Think so.
Because this is not every surface in here is hard and flat and reflective. In fact, every surface in here is irregular. Because every surface in here, if it's not a window or an opening,
you want a fun project? Take those DVDs and randomly pull some of them out.
I guess that'll make it even more diffuse. But
make a giant diffuser on everything.
That's right. But I mean, what we're mostly worried about in rooms are continuous, hard, flat surfaces, because those are highly reflective and they give strong reflections that are not scattered in any way.
Right.
And that means that it could quite easily interfere with the direct sound going from the speakers to your ears. In your situation, you got an irregularly shaped room to begin with, and then you've got irregular surfaces all over your walls. That means you probably don't even need as many panels as you already have, although that's not likely to hurt anything.
Right. That's what actually I was thinking. When I first saw this, I was like, I think you're kind of okay. Not only are you okay, you probably lose a panel or two, and you probably wouldn't, this is the difference too much. But because the kitchen ends up being a base trap anyways, just goes out there.
Plus upstairs, I don't know if there's a door at the top of those stairs or not, but I mean,
if there's not, air
can just move freely up that stairwell as well. No, you are not a candidate for where we would be saying, oh, you've got to add more absorption here. I think you're fine already. You're probably more than you need.
I think this more than anything, it should indicate to listeners that we have no motto, we have no mantra, we have no agenda. We are in no way like, in order to fix things, you must do this one thing. Like, that's just that's just when you go to somebody who sells cables, they're like, cables can fix everything. Like, what's wrong with my
we are
room?
not holding
Tell
a
me your
single
problem.
hammer.
Yeah, tell me your problem, and I will tell you the cable that will fix it. And we're
Right.
like, even the thing that we mostly say around here, which is you need more absorption, you need more absorption, you need more absorption. We get to this guy, we're like, nah, dude, you can back
Not in
off.
your
You're
case.
good.
But if you want a more objective take on it, because coming up later, he actually already owns a U-Mic 1. So you already have the measurement microphone on hand, and I'm assuming you have a computer of some sort, and Room EQ Wizard is free. So what you could do,
but it's in there someplace.
Yeah, what you could do is play some. So you'd want to play short chirps. You'd want to do a short chirp out of one speaker at a time, and what you're looking for is the waterfall plot to see how long it takes for the sound to decay. And you could do a very short sweep chirp, where it's actually like brip, like kind of what Odyssey does, right? That sweep chirp that it makes. And you would look at the waterfall plot in Room EQ Wizard, and what you're hoping to see is generally fairly short decay times, but also that you would expect to see the decay times getting longer and longer as the frequency gets lower and lower. And that's just because the wavelength of those frequencies is longer to begin with. It takes that much longer for the wave to even form, so therefore it takes a little bit longer for the wave to decay as well. But you want to see that as a generally smooth increase in decay times from your high frequencies down to your low frequencies. You don't want to see a lot of irregularities, where some of the high frequencies take a long time to decay and others are very, very short, and then some of the bass frequencies take a long time to decay and others are very, very short. You want it to be a gradual increase in decay times. So that would be a more objective way to look at it.
I would venture to guess that he has exactly what he's going to find in here. Anyways.
Right. By rule of thumb and just looking at it, I would go, you're probably very, very okay right now.
Yeah. So again, his goal is to just get the best audio quality possible. His speakers are clips reference 2 series up front. The center is pushed back on the stand so it won't be knocked over by kids or pets. Yeah. Okay. So the surround back speakers are from an Onkyo home theater in the box. The receiver is Onkyo 818. So is there anything in terms of his speakers or receiver they should do in order to get the best sound? Yeah. Upgrade everything.
Jeez. Well,
I don't mean that in a bad way.
Spending any more money on absorption panels, so I guess
don't mean that in a bad way. I'm saying that this guy is literally like prime candidate for getting like better speakers and us not having to say things like, okay, but if you get them and you don't do this, this, and this, your room's going to mess them up and you may not know what you're going to get.
Your room is not the limiting factor. We're not saying that the first thing you need to do is treat this room. You've already treated the room.
Perfectly a great candidate for room correction like Drac or Odyssey.
But he already has Multi-Q XT32 with an Onkyo 818, so.
Right, well, and really the speakers for me, I mean, especially the home theater in a box surrounds are probably just fine. They're probably just fine.
Yes. I mean, home theater in a box speakers, that could definitely be an upgrade to be had there. But, surrounds
I think if you're going to do this, I think you do the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this front sound stage and I'm like, I have zero problem with the Clips Reference 2 speakers in an overall sense, but for this listening distance, which is quite close, what do you say, about 8.5 feet, you do not need the efficiency. And it looks as though you're essentially like, these are where they can be physically, not necessarily where they would be optimally.
Right.
So
they
honestly
definitely could be wider for sure.
Yeah, the front, left, and right.
They're really only servicing the 2 middle chairs.
Yeah. And I mean, that ideally having that center, we wouldn't have it pushed back like that because you're getting a strong reflection off the top of the equipment cabinet.
I have some issue with that statement that he has it pushed back so the animals and the kids don't knock it over. First of all, it's on top of a table.
Yeah.
How is having it that far back? And I mean, if they're going to knock it over, they're going to knock it over from there too. I mean, push it all at least so that the front, the front of the speaker is in line with the front. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
don't see. I mean, maybe that cat, it looks pretty.
I guess maybe when the dogs get in there, maybe their paws go up on the front of that table.
If they have Danes or something like that too, Danes could their tails are right there at that level and they can knock stuff over. They're real strong too when they're full grown. So that could be an issue. So I'm not saying that, but I gotta believe you can pull that thing forward a little bit.
But I mean, I would consider different speakers all around.
Yeah, I think so.
That's something that could be a consideration. So obviously that's a whole other budget that might not be in the cards right now, but you're asking, is there something you could do to improve the sound? And honestly, you could replace all the speakers that you own. You don't have to
Yeah.
by any means, but you could.
I would be looking at bookshelf speakers. I mean, you're sitting
Yeah,
super close.
for
Dude.
sure.
I would get the money that you're going to save in
Yeah.
how much in a tower speaker buying a bookshelf, your performance can go up quite a bit.
And
And
I mean,
you like
if
to
you
make
like
stuff
that,
anyways. You make the stands. That's zero money out
yeah.
of your pocket practically. So I think that like some nice quality bookshelf speakers are perfect.
I mean, if you like that efficiency and horn loaded type sound, you could definitely look at HSU speakers. That would be a consideration.
I mean, he doesn't need the efficiency, so I think
So if he just likes that style, though.
I mean, yeah. No.
All right.
I don't like the HSUs. All right. Without getting to subwoofers just yet, overall, what can you do in here in terms of absorption panels and speakers to optimize this audio quality? Should you consider adding diffusion panels? Dude, your room is a diffusion panel. Should he stuff any air gaps with pink insulation if he wants maximum bass absorption? Nope. Should he fill any of the air gaps around his surround speakers in his bookcases with insulation? I mean, you could. Would such little bits of insulation even make a difference?
Nope.
I mean, you could do any or all of this, and you'd be like, afterwards, you're like, whoo, I'm hot and sweaty. I'm going to go listen to something and hear the big difference I just made. And you'll be like, nope. I mean, like I said, if you really want more diffusion in this place, just go there and just move some of the DVDs in and
right.
some
have them
out.
Have none of their backs even with each other.
That's
right.
It's
going to look odd, but
yeah,
I guess there's that.
Hey, there's already you've made like a little fort in here out of subwoofers and couch, so he's already looking a little odd.
Yeah, no, the biggest change you could make in here now would be actually changing your speakers. That is the biggest change you could make now.
Yeah, I don't see anything else that you could do in this room. I mean, if you the only issue that I might see is if you pushed your speakers out wider, so that it encompassed the whole couch. That right speaker would be nearer to that wall, and then you might want to have like literally a panel that you would just lean up next to your DVDs.
Next to the window.
Yeah, right there, and that would be that absolute only thing I think that you would want to do to this room. I mean, I don't see any reason to put anything on your ceiling. I don't see any reason to add any absorption. You definitely don't need to add any diffusion.
Nope, you got bookcases everywhere.
So subwoofers, he says he's got a pair of SVS SB13 Ultras on either side of his couch. They're on top of subdued isolation risers. He's also got a mini DSP 2x4 and a U-Mic 1. It's hard for him to access the back panel controls of his subs. So can he use the mini DSP to make all the necessary adjustments? He hasn't tried the trial and error process of adjusting phase just yet. So when he's ready to do that, can he do it via the mini DSP instead of having to adjust the phase knobs on the back of the SVS subwoofers? I think yes, right? Don't I think yes?
For the most part, yes. Though the one thing where they're a little bit more limited is that in the mini DSP, I believe it gives you a distance setting or a delay setting, and it doesn't have a huge range on that. I think it actually only goes up to 7.5 milliseconds, which is a very small amount of adjustment to be made. So yeah. Other than that, I mean, you can definitely change, relative levels as far as the gain that's being sent out. You can do individualized EQ, which you can also do as far as 3 bands of EQ could be built into the subs, but you can certainly do individualized EQ on the mini DSP itself. Yeah, it's really only the delay adjustment where I don't think it has as much play. So if what it has is enough, then yes, you can basically do everything just in the mini DSP. Yeah.
So if and when he does the phase adjustment thing, after he's done, if he makes any changes to the room, such as adding more shelves or absorption panels, will he need to do the trial and error phase adjustments all over again? The technical answer to that is yes.
I suppose.
The realistic answer is, I mean, you'd have to really make a change, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about adding a little bit of absorption or a little bit of a panel, a couple
I mean,
more,
those aren't going to
cover
affect
up a
the
window with a bookshelf. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it making a huge.
Those aren't going to affect the deep bass anyway.
Nah.
So where you would definitely have to is if you moved your seats like significantly. Now you're in a
literally no place else to put them.
Oh, I know, but I mean, this is for everyone else. If you
Right.
did move your seats significantly, now you're in a completely different wave pattern part of the room. If you significantly change the dimensions of your room, like for example, for all the people we tell to add a door, if they had done this before adding the door and then they add a door, well, now you got to do it again because you have a completely different wave pattern in that room now. Just adding shelves or absorption panels, those aren't affecting frequencies low enough that I would expect you to need to do this. Tom is correct in that if you want to be completely anal retentive about it, then yes, of course you could, but I wouldn't expect that. Where we would expect to see large different results is when you are significantly changing the wave pattern of the bass in your room. And that would mean changing the dimensions of the room or changing where you are taking the measurements in the room.
Yeah. See, most people have to, if they have a room that's basically bare and they set everything up and then we're like, go buy absorption panels. And they get a bunch of absorption panels, they put them all over the room. Like, yes, now do it again.
Right. Yeah.
Because we have essentially, without actually changing the dimensions of a room, according from the sound's perspective, we have. By adding the absorption room,
even we then have probably only down to about 80 hertz, but that's significant enough that you would probably want to. But in this case, we're not suggesting you add a bunch more panels. So, yeah. You'd be okay. In other words, you'd be okay to do it now because we don't anticipate that you're going to significantly move where your seat is or add solid doors anywhere or add significant enough absorption that it would actually affect the subwoofer signals.
Right. So when he was level matching his two subwoofers, he had a single subwoofer output signal coming out of his AV receiver to his mini DSP. He left the subwoofer trim level on his AV receiver at the default 0 position, and he used the mini DSP to get each sub to read 75 dB individually. Then he ran Odyssey and set it the subwoofer output trim level down a couple of dB so that the combined response of the two subs was at 75 dB. Is this okay? Is that the correct way to do level matching in his setup? That's perfectly fine.
That's totally fine. Yeah.
If you want to be real anal about it, I would have done it so that the mini DSP had set it for like 73, so that your trim level stays at 0.
Yeah, 72 or 73.
Yeah, just so that
and then the combined is automatically at 75 that way.
And the reason I would have done that is simply because if you lower the trim level on your receiver, it can cause like the output voltage to be just low enough that the automatic turn on doesn't happen. Unlikely to be an issue, unlikely to be something that ever affects anything. But at the same time, I was like, okay, well.
Yeah, and he certainly didn't say anything like, oh, sometimes no sound is coming out of my SVS subs.
Right.
What you did in your setup is totally fine.
Yeah. So did I skip a question?
Oh, gee.
Okay, yeah. He tried applying some EQ to subwoofers using the mini DSP. He found that after doing this, he had to increase the output level of the subs to get them back to reading 75 dB. Is that because the EQ was cutting some frequency, causing the overall output level to drop a bit? Any issue with this? I know. Anytime that you make any sort of EQ or changes to your sub, you're always going to have to worry about, rechecking the level matching and making sure it's fine. You don't know exactly, you do know because you made the changes yourself. So, assuming that you did, sometimes when people say, "Oh, I made changes EQing," what you mean is you used Room EQ Wizard and it did the thing, and then the thing was done, and then it was fine. But yeah, you should always go back and check your subs volume levels. So yeah, no problems with this
what
whatsoever.
was described there sounds exactly like what we would expect, because when you're looking for the overall, like when you're setting the trim level or the volume dial on your subwoofer, it's playing pink noise. So it's playing all the frequencies simultaneously and taking that signal cumulatively and saying all of these frequencies playing at the same time equal 75 decibels of output. Now, if you go in there with an equalizer and you do what you should do, which is trim down any peaks as opposed to trying to fill in any large dips, that's exactly what you ought to do, is cut down any large peaks. Then yeah, when you go back and play all the frequencies cumulatively again, the overall level might be a bit lower than before you applied that equalizer.
Shouldn't be huge. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, it shouldn't be huge, but he didn't describe it as huge. Like, I had to tick it up a little bit so that it was back to 75 dB. That totally makes sense.
So what's the correct order for using the mini DSP's adjustments versus Odyssey? Should he do level, distance, and EQ adjustments all in the mini DSP first and then run Odyssey after all that? Or should he be making some adjustments in the mini DSP after Odyssey has been run? I would think that you would do the mini DSP stuff first and then the Odyssey stuff second.
Yeah, Odyssey should be last, with the one exception being if you really, really do not want Odyssey's final target curve to be your final result.
That's true.
The overarching idea of this is that what you're trying to achieve before running Odyssey is uniform bass across all of the seats that you care about. Once you have that, now Odyssey can very effectively EQ it because it's getting the same response no matter where you measure. You've achieved uniformity prior to running Odyssey. So all the stuff you're doing in the mini DSP, and one thing that could help you would be that multi-sub optimization software. Again, you already have the measurement microphone, so you could give that a try. Even though you're only using 2 subs, you can still give it a try, because what that'll do is spit out recommendations for what each individual sub should have as its level, delay, and EQ setting, which you can set in the mini DSP. So you've done that for each of your 2 subs individually in the mini DSP, which should result in nice uniform bass across all of your seats. Then you run Odyssey and it can very effectively EQ it. But of course, the end result of that would be Odyssey's EQ target curve. And if you really want something different, then you could go back in to the mini DSP and do whatever alterations after the fact to get the target curve that you want. That's starting to get complicated. If you had one of the newer AV receivers that can use the Odyssey Editor app, you could adjust the Odyssey's target curve in there. But with the Onkyo 818, you can't use the Odyssey Editor app. So yeah, for most people, I would say Odyssey should be the last thing that you run.
Yeah. So give us a budget. Basically, give us a budget of what you want to spend on speakers, and we will we'll help you buy speakers if you're looking to buy speakers. If you're not, enjoy what you have and save up. And then I mean, obviously the man cares about audio. So if you care about audio,
yes,
I mean, buying speakers should be an easy sell. You know what I mean?
Right.
That should be the
but obviously more expensive than acoustic panels. So
that is true.
Yeah.
Brandon installed an Epson 4000 projector with a Seymour AV center stage UF, which is the ultra fine 109-inch screen. He surprised his wife with a surprise. And even though she wasn't exactly thrilled at first, once they watched the first movie, she had to admit it was pretty awesome. He's also got a 65-inch Vizio P-Series TV that's now behind the screen when it comes down, and his receiver is a Marantz SR7011. He plugged the main HDMI output of his Marantz into his Vizio and the mirrored output into the Epson. If the Vizio is off and the Epson is on, everything works fine. But if the Epson is off and the Vizio is on, sources cut in and out, seemingly trying to handshake over and over, or in the case of his Apple TV, it just goes black.
Yeah. Yep.
So which one's the mirrored one? The Epson is the mirrored one.
The Epson is on the mirrored output.
Yeah. Is there a solution for this? They only use the Epson for movies, so it's not the absolute end of the world to plug and unplug it. But obviously, that's a bit inconvenient and isn't exact. And isn't this exact setup the whole point of it? Multiple HDMI outputs on the Marantz. Any way to get this working? Sometimes the idea of these outputs on the Marantz, well, these dual HDMI outputs is one's for audio, one's for video, one's for Zone 2 or something like that too.
Well, the Zone 2, yeah, because that AV receiver, the 7011, it actually has 3 HDMI outputs. 2 of them are mirrored, but the third one is an independent Zone 2 HDMI output, and that could be the thing that helps you here.
Yeah, just go ahead and plug the Epson into the Zone 2.
Into the Zone 2.
Yeah. That seems like that would be a pretty good solution.
Yeah, because you're not having to buy anything, and it is a few more button presses, but you could actually set up a macro to do that if you have a Harmony or something like that. And so what you would do is you would still have the Vizio television connected to the main HDMI output. Because now, when you have Zone 2 turned off, the Marantz doesn't see the Epson at all. So that should work. Right? So now Zone 2 is turned off. It doesn't see the Epson at all. So it's just sending things out to the Vizio. That should work fine. Then you said when the Vizio TV is off, but the Epson is on, that's okay. So when you turn Zone 2 on, so that now the signal is being set to the Epson, but the Vizio television itself is turned off, that shouldn't create a conflict. What you will need to do is make sure that your sources are set to output to both the main zone and to zone 2, because you're still getting the audio from the main zone, but you're sending the video to zone 2. So as long as your source is set to output to both the main zone and zone 2, you'll get the audio in the main zone, and you'll get the video coming out of the zone 2 HDMI output being set to your Epson. But that's fine. And then when you're not using the Epson, you just turn zone 2 off entirely, and now everything just goes to your Vizio and the main zone. So that should work. Fingers crossed.
Emphasis on should.
Yes, definitely.
Lots of things should work around here.
I am not guaranteeing that at all. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the reverse of what we might expect. Often we expect that when the projector is off, it's completely off, and it's the television that's like pseudo on, because it's in standby, ready to go. But in this case, it happens to be the reverse. When the Vizio is in standby, everything is fine. But when the Epson is in standby, apparently there's still enough of a signal that it's like, I can't handshake with both of you. HDMI.
So if he's using his Apple TV, it seems to be set up for a new video output every time he switches between which display he's using. Is there a way to get the Apple TV to just stick to one video setting output, or auto switching depending on whether he's using the Vizio or the Epson, or auto switch depending on whether he's using the video?
In other words, remember.
Yeah, remembering is not something that these things do very well. But it seems like there should be like a force it to output one thing. Isn't there in there? I thought that they were adding that.
I don't know. I don't have an Apple TV on hand to test firsthand, so I don't know. The NVIDIA Shield lets you do that. That's the one. Yeah. That's the one that doesn't auto switch when you want it to. It's the reverse problem.
Welcome to.
Yeah, I don't know. This seems like a highly likely thing, right? Like it's like, the Apple TV's like, I'm connected to a different display this now. You turn the Epson on, new display, set me up again. Yeah, doesn't shock me that that's what it does.
Isn't that? Yeah. That's why Apple makes it so that anybody can use it. It just works.
Right.
It just works. It just works in such a way as to make you want to pull your hair out, but it just works.
So, I mean, the full answer is I don't know, because I haven't actually tested this scenario firsthand since I don't have an Apple TV on hand. I guess you're doing the setup procedure every time you switch between displays. God, that is a hassle. But what else can you do besides buying a second Apple TV?
That might be an option.
I guess. If you got money burning a hole in your pocket like this Apple TV is for the Vizio.
How much are those things?
$180.
I'd pay $180 for that thing.
I know. Oh, maybe that's Canadian. It might be 150 in the States. I'm not sure.
Whatever. So the Epson 4000 is limited to 4K 24 if the movie is in HDR. Rob mentioned that the new 4010 that replaces the 4000 in Epson's lineup has a full 18 gigabits per second HDMI inputs for 4K 60 support. But this is correct. Everything Brandon has read about the new 4010 says it's still limited to 4K 24 with HDR. Are you questioning Rob?
As well he should, because I was wrong.
Oh,
dead wrong. Well, at least
Rob, you have failed us for the last time.
I know. From the information I found, which is probably the same information Brandon found. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Other than they're calling their new wobble procedure a different name, and apparently it's wobbling slightly differently. Like this is kind of how every year JVC has a new number for E-shift, right? So Epson also makes little alterations to how they wobble their panels. So apparently they're wobbling it in a slightly new procedure, and they're calling that I don't know, Pro UHD or something or other is the copyright name they gave to it. In any case, that appears to be the only difference between the 4000 and the 4010, because everything else in the manuals and in the specs is identical.
So why do we think that there was changed?
Because the replacement for the 5040 has the 18 gigabits per second. So I made the poor assumption that since they did it to the 5040's replacement, which we're expecting will be called the 5050, since that one got upgraded HDMI inputs, and that is for sure listed in the table, I assumed they'd do the same thing for the 4000's replacement, but I was dead wrong about that. The 4010 appears to be exactly the same as the 4000. So still limited.
So the Epson 4000 does not automatically switch picture modes when you switch between HDR and SDR. You have to manually switch picture modes. We've talked about that on this podcast before.
Yeah.
Any chance it might ever get a firmware update so that it switches automatically? Or does the new 4010 excuse me, have automatic picture mode switching for HDR versus SDR. Any chance? There is always a chance.
Right.
I think it's a very, very slim chance.
If it happened, I wouldn't say the world has ended and the impossible has occurred. It could. That's
I would not. The betting man, the smart money is on not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is not utterly inconceivable and impossible, but I
especially
wouldn't
since
hold my
the
breath
4010
for it.
seems to be the 4000.
Yeah,
with very little changes.
I mean
the
the 4010, by everything I could read about the 4010, doesn't make any mention of automatically switching picture modes. It still gives you the same troubleshooting error for I just put an HDR signal, it doesn't look HDR. They're like, well, manually turn on the HDR mode. So that's still in there in the 4010's instructions. So I don't think anything changed.
So, if anything, that gives me more hope that they might actually add some firmware to fix this. But because if fixing one would fix the other one as well, but the fact that they haven't already fixed it tells me they're not gonna fix it. So,
yeah, wouldn't hold my breath on that one.
Brandon needed a 50-foot HDMI cable for the projector, and he went for a monoprice fiber optic HDMI cable. Is that still the top recommendation, or could an active HDMI cable work as just as well at 50 feet? Isn't the fiber optic cable active? I thought that was active.
Well, I mean, but we're making the differentiation between a passive copper cable, which is the normal HDMI cable, and active copper cable, which, has the directional thing and you have to plug the correct end into the correct device, and then a fiber optic cable, which, yes, is active, but...
Could you have a copper cable that is active that works just as well? Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, 50 feet is right about the cutoff, right? That's right where I'm like, maybe go fiber optic, right? But Blue Jeans cable, they do sell in their Series 3 active HDMI cables, which are copper. They do sell a 50-footer, and I would trust that. If Blue Jeans cable sells it, I trust it, basically. So they do have a 50-footer that is active. But honestly, going with the fiber, I mean, I guess he's thinking he could return it and save money, right, by going with the active, which is true.
Is that true?
Yeah.
The 50-foot cable from Blue Jeans is cheaper than the 50-foot fiber optic.
Yeah.
Wow.
The fiber optics are kind of pricey. So, if this is about you could still return the fiber optic and get an active copper HDMI one instead to save some money, I would give that an okay thumbs up, but you are right on that borderline. So,
yeah. He read an article somewhere claiming fiber optic HDMI cables provide better picture quality even at shorter lengths. Is any truth to this?
Nope.
Not even a little bit.
Did the ones and zeros get there? Did the ones and zeros get there better?
Well, it's because it's light, Rob. Light is what we see coming out of displays, and light is what's transporting the ones and the zeros. Therefore, the ones and zeros are more illuminated, Rob. It's just science.
You know what happens in binary digital? Man, this 1 and 0 barely got here, but they got there? Yep, then it's perfect.
But it's lighter, Rob. Stop it. You're not thinking scientifically.
Right.
Andrew on Facebook. Andrew has Philips Hue lighting and uses the Apple Home app to control and automate them. What other home automation items should he consider adding to his home theater setup? A Harmony Hub? Amazon Echo device, an Ecobee, none of the above.
Harmony Hub for sure. Harmony Hub.
All of them are work. All of them technically can work with what you're talking about here, and I think it's implementation for me has been very, very, very spotty. So if you're really into doing this sort of stuff, you should get into like the Z-Wave stuff and all that.
Z-Wave or Insteon, those are probably the safest bets. But I mean, he's already dipped his toe into Apple, so you could look at things that are all Apple HomeKit.
Okay. Well, the Harmony Hub definitely is something that you could do. Yes. And then the Amazon will work with the Apple and all that stuff.
Well, I don't know if the Echo will work with the HomeKit, but the Echo will work with the Harmony Hub. And the Harmony Hub, in turn, will work with, I mean, it'll definitely work with your Philips Hue lights, but it'll also work with a ton of other home automation devices. So you might end up stepping away from HomeKit if you want to get more into your Amazon Echo doing all your voice control via your Harmony Hub, which is a possibility. No.
Yeah. I mean, you get stuff that opens and closes your drapes, lowers your screen.
Yes.
If you have a screen, stuff like that.
Yeah. One other thing that might be very nice is Lutron has some great motorized shades, window shades.
Sure.
So the Serena shades in particular, those work with HomeKit. If you want to stay in HomeKit, they will also work with the Harmony Hub. That'll let them be controlled by that. So yeah, you could definitely set up a scene with your Harmony Hub where you tell she who shall not be named, start my, watch a movie activity. And it turns on your TV and it sets the lights to the level that you want, and it lowers your Lutron Serena shades and, powers up your AV receiver and does all of that as part of the activities. That's kind of cool. The main thing I would recommend, since I'm certainly not a home automation expert, is check out the Home On podcast over at the Digital Media Zone. That's Richard Gunther, who is a home automation expert. And you probably already know about it, but on the chance that you don't, or that other listeners aren't aware of it, Home On podcast is fantastic for home automation stuff.
Yeah, those guys know their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So Andrew wants some gear lust. If each of us, Tom and Rob, had $25,000 to spend on a full home theater setup, what would we get? First of all, gear lust and $25,000 for an entire setup do not go hand in hand.
You still got to be careful. I mean, you can get some nice stuff, but you still
absolutely.
This isn't sky's the limit by any means.
No. I know Rob's got a big list of stuff. I got a list. So go on.
All right. He said to include seating. So, okay, I'll include seating. I'd get some from HT Market. They're HT Design recliners. I'm going to say I'm going to get 4 of them. So that's $2,800 for the model that I like. It's about $700 a piece. I'd spend $4,000 on a projector. I'd get the JVC X790. That's a Wobble K model, and I'm okay with the handshakes taking a long time. I'm all right with that. I'd get a Seymour AV screen. I'd want one that has masking. So that's going to be $3,300. I'd go whole hog on an AV receiver. No, that'd be a drop down, because actually the motorized masking fixed frame is more expensive, so I'm getting the drop down one.
Oh, okay.
With masking, that's $3,300. That would be for a nice 135 inch or 137 in Seymour's case, diagonal screen size. I'm going whole hog on an AV receiver. I'm going to get a Denon X8500H, and I can get that from accessories for less for $3,000. So I'm cheating a little there, saving $1,000. I'm going to assume I have a nice sized room, and I'm going to go killer on the subwoofers, because why not? So some dual SVS PC4000s. Basically what I have already in PC13 Ultras, but I like those. That's $3,400 for a pair of those. I love the speakers I have now. I'd get them again if I had this budget. So that's going to be Ascend Acoustics, Horizon RAL speakers across the front, 3 of those. I'm going to keep front wides because I got myself an X8500H, so that's a pair of Sierra 2s to do that. And then I'd use Sierra Lunas, their on-wall models, as my surrounds and surround backs. So yeah, all of those together, those 7 speakers, or 9 speakers rather, is about $7,500. And then to save money, because I need to, even with a $25,000 budget, I'll get 2 pairs of the Focal Bird speakers to mount on my ceiling for Atmos. So that's $600 for those.
Only 4 overhead speakers, Rob. How are you gonna live with yourself?
I'll be just fine. I only got 4 recliners, so that's not 2 rows. And that leaves me $150 plus another $200. So $150, I'll get myself a Harmony Companion to control it all. And the other $200 I'm spending on cables. And I might just slip in at $25,000 with that. I'm done.
There you go. Good. All right, let's go on. Like I said, I didn't have time to come up with anything. And honestly, I don't like to shop. Rob has got a lot of stuff still kind of in his head, because he's thinking, like, I right now I love just about everything about my home theater. I would in a heartbeat change my speakers, and I would definitely upgrade my projector to a 4K.
Sure.
But other than that, like, I love my couches, I love my subs, I love the amount of room treatments I have in here. I would spend money and get the world's shortest ceiling fan with a light in it, so I could, because right now my screen's a little bit too low because I got to shoot underneath the stupid
ceiling fan.
Yeah. So that's what I would buy. That would be it. $25,000 ceiling fan. Just add it to what I had. I would really want to go. I would really spend 6 months just listening to speakers.
Hmm.
I almost guarantee you I would do that. I would not. I think I'd probably spend the most on that out of anything. All right, this is from Tom, who lives in Prague. So exciting. Never that I know of had a question from Prague. So here we go. Prague has a challenge. I'm sorry, Tom has a challenge. His name's not Prague. He lives in Prague. Tom has a challenge. His living room is open concept. The area where he has his TV is roughly 14 feet by 16 feet. But then it's open on the right to a 15-foot by 33-foot space for the kitchen and dining room. Then all that is open to a hallway. Also, the ceilings are 10.5 feet tall. Yep. Despite the open concept, he has a very limited space for speakers due to built-in cabinets and doorway placement, as well as where cables have to be run, which lead back to an AV rack where all the gear is already set up. So the available space for the subwoofer needs to go is only 13 inches deep, 11 inches wide, and 28 inches tall.
That's tiny.
That's not big enough for a PC something. Furthermore, he'd really like the subwoofer to be glossy white.
You can't have it all.
I was going to say, how are you with paint? Because you're going to have to, you might have to custom get this guy. He never been able to pressurize the space. Ain't that the truth?
Not with that size.
I don't know. Could we recommend anything that would fit all of these constraints? He found the Dolly Phase-On Sub 1. And Dolly is a speaker manufacturer, which I have recommended in the past. Though I have not recommended every speaker they've ever made. I think it's something like a unilateral thing. But the subwoofer he's talking about, the Phase-On Sub 1, it's 9 inches by 10 by 10 with a 6.5-inch driver. Should he get that, or is there something else? Do just about anything else is going to be better than that. But
I mean, that's really not even a subwoofer. That's a woofer.
That is a base module. That is, Okay, so the space that he's actually sitting in, and let's just address that really quick first. Okay. So he is he didn't really tell us.
Well, I mean, like 14 by 16 by 10.5 is the area, but then it's open to a whole 15 by 33 by 10.5 plus a hallway. So
for your speakers themselves, the fact that you're sitting fairly close to all of them means that you don't have to worry so much about the size of your speakers as far as being able to pressurize the whole space or being that loud
for the direct sound from the speakers to your ears.
Speakers, yes. So I just want to first of all put that out there. You're probably sitting within 10 feet of your speakers, anyways. So most of the time, most speakers will be able to do just fine in your little space. Now, the subwoofer is going to be a bit of a challenge. We've said this many times on this podcast before. You can have small, you can have low or loud or whatever, and you can have cheap. Pick two,
right?
Because you can't have all three of those things. You can't have it small and low, loud, and cheap. They don't all go together.
And
so
in this case, we're
need
talking
loud and small.
Yeah.
So you don't get cheap.
Right.
You also don't get white. I hate to say it to you.
But I mean, in this case, we're talking so small that you
small.
Just can't get super deep. It's just impossible with this size constraint. But you can get not utterly terrible, although it's still going to be kind of expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what you got, Rob?
I mean, the only sub I would recommend in this case would be from JL Audio. And they have their Dominion series, which is actually below their E series, but that's the only series that has a model that will physically fit into the size he's got, and it would be their D108. That's as the name implies, that's an 8-inch driver, better than the 6.5-inch driver in the Dali. It does only come in glossy black, as far as I'm aware. I believe some of their other subs are available in glossy white, but I haven't seen any mention of the Dominion subs coming in glossy white. But I mean, at least this thing gets you to a little bit below 30 hertz as far as its extension goes. It is an 8-inch sealed design, as all JL Audio home subwoofers are sealed designs. But I mean, like JL Audio always does, a monster amplifier in this thing and crazy excursion. So I mean, that's...
How tall is it? How tall is it? Do you remember?
So this one is only 11 inches tall, so you could get two of them and stack it if your budget allows.
Get two. Stack them. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes, get two.
Oh, yeah. You know,
If you can.
it's 10 inches wide, so that'll fit into your 11-inch wide space. It's with its grill on, it's a hair over 13 inches deep. But if you took the grill off, it is 13 inches deep. So you said it has to fit 13 inches deep. Take the grill off, it'll fit. And it's only 11 inches tall, so you could actually get two of them and stack them if budget allows. But it's not a cheap sub. But I mean, that's the only one I would recommend to you.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it'll cost over there. So, yeah.
Do we know how much it costs here, just for reference?
I'd have to look it up, but give me a moment.
So there's very few companies that make very small, very good subs.
Yeah.
And JL Audio is by far the best of them.
Yes.
So whenever I think of a small sub, JL Audio is almost certainly the subwoofer manufacturer that I look to. Now, that does not preclude you from looking for other subs. And if you really want that dolly, man, knock yourself out. I don't care. So, but this is going to be better. Okay, that's the long and the short of it. This is going to be, I think, quite a bit better than that dolly.
Right. That the teeny tiny D108 suggested retail price is $900. Yeah. For an 8-inch sealed sub, that's expensive, but I mean, not utterly out of the reach of possibility. I mean, if this is the only thing that'll fit, it could be worth spending that amount.
Right. Well, I mean,
$1,800.
I mean, are you absolutely sure it has to be this size? I mean, right? There's just nothing else in this room.
You couldn't put a cylinder
we could literally save
else.
you. Yeah. We could get you a lot more bass
lot
less money.
Yeah.
With just a few more inches all the way around this thing. You sure you can't squeeze a little, scoot a piece of pottery over
16-inch diameter cylinder that, I mean, it won't fit in this space that he described, but if there's anywhere else in this room that you could put a 16-inch diameter cylinder, you can get an SVS cylinder sub, and that'll be a lot less expensive and play a lot lower and a lot louder.
Right. So next he has a dedicated home theater room, 14.5 feet by 19 feet. He can totally black out the room when watching a movie, but he liked to be able to have some lights on when watching sports or when playing cards with the projector, and the projector is on in the background. So he's considering an ambient light rejecting screen. He read through a Projector Central's ALR screen comparison, and it seems as though either the Elite Screen's Dark Star 9 or the Screen Innovation's Black Diamond 1.4 would be the best options based on that article. He wouldn't want a visible texture on the screen when he's watching movies in pitch blackness, and it's more important in his setup to reject light that's coming from overhead rather than from the side. He wants a wide viewing angle and to retain excellent black levels. So should he go with one of these two screen materials or something else? I think you should go with a projector that has two settings. One for that turns up the brightness during the time when you are watching with the lights on, and one that has I blacked out the room and I'm watching the movie setting, and that you should just get a regular old screen. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm largely in favor of that too, because I what you described for when lights are on, I'm like, that doesn't sound like they're critical enough.
Very bright. Yeah.
It doesn't sound
to have some lights on while you're watching sports, so that you can see things that are going on in the room, like you're eating or something like that. There's going to be enough light coming off the screen that mostly you can do that anyways, and then you add a little bit of ambient light, and it's not going to wash it out that much. You just have two settings on your two user settings on your screen, on your projector, so that one has the brightness up slightly and one has it perfectly in tune for low light. And you get a regular old screen. I don't like ambient light rejecting screens in any setup almost at all that's outside of like an industrial, or a business thing, right, where you absolutely can't. The lights are on all the time,
right,
and you are still competing with them. You want to be able to see the image.
That's right. Yeah, when lights on is going to be the norm, then you got to look at ambient light rejecting. But it's like, now when you can have completely blacked out for movies and the only times you're going to have the lights on is a more casual viewing experience or basically in the background, like I wouldn't sacrifice on the movie experience one iota. I'd be like,
well, and I think what's going to end up happening is he's going to hate the screen. He's going to watch a movie and it's going to be like little hot spots here and there. And it's going to, it's not going to look as good as it could, because it's the black levels are never going to be as good as they should be because of the screen itself. I think he's going to hate the screen, unless he
I'll warn you, like
almost never watch those movies.
That Black Diamond from Screen Innovations, as expensive as it is, and it is an expensive screen. I've had more than one person I've talked to privately, and this is some of them going back years, but nobody was happy with it. They're like, it definitely has a texture. It sparkles when you're in the dark.
Ugh.
It's like, no, you don't do that. And the Elite Screen's Dark Star 9 isn't even available anymore. Now they're all called Cinegray, either 5D or 3D. I wouldn't do these. I mean, the best ambient light rejecting screen, in my opinion, that you can get right now is Illunavision's. They're Aurora. Yes, the Aurora from Illunavision. That's if you had to get ambient light rejecting, that's the one I would get. But I wouldn't in your case. I would get a white screen in your case.
You're not are you? I don't think that you're an image anymore. I think you're just a black screen.
Yeah, whatever. We're not even going to get through like 5 questions this podcast, so
that's because the questions are forever long. It's not my fault.
I know.
So, read about light. Can we just skip this one because we already said
no. It's this is good information for other things, though.
All right, reading about about ambient light rejecting screens, he was a bit confused by some of the specs. What is the vertical half angle? How would that impact his setup where he'll be using a 120-inch screen, the bottom of which will be 2 feet 3 inches off the floor, and his projector is 6 feet 6 inches off the top of off the floor on top of a cabinet at the back of the room, so 16 feet 8 inches from lens to screen. I have no idea what that is. What's a vertical half angle?
Right. So the idea is, let's say you had the projector directly in front of the screen, firing straight ahead right at the middle of the screen. All right. And you took a measurement of how much light gets reflected off the screen of that. So that'd be the exact on-axis gain, right? And so let's just say it's throwing out 1,000 lumens, and exactly 1,000 lumens come back when the projector's right in front, right in the middle of the screen. Now you say, how high up can I stand up or place the projector up or down from that center position until what I end up seeing is half that brightness? Right?
Oh, okay. Well,
so that's the vertical half angle. So let's say you can stand up, and now you're a 30 or 40 elevation, 30 or 40 degree elevation angle above the middle of the screen, right? Projector stayed at the middle, but you are now 30 or 40 degrees higher than that, and you're still getting 900 or 800 lumens at that point, right? That means that the vertical half angle is way above that somewhere, which, a perfectly even white screen would be like that. In fact, you'd have to be like basically at almost 180 degrees to the screen before you'd notice a difference in how much light there is versus viewing straight on with the projector straight on. But with these ambient light rejecting screens, of course, they are shedding off light that's coming at them from an angle. Right. So some of them shed off the light that's coming from above and below much more than they shed off the light that's coming from either side, or vice versa. Like the ambient light rejecting screen that Seymour sells is designed to shed light that's coming from the sides, but then it doesn't shed very much light that's coming from above and below. So that might be helpful if your light is coming from a window rather than from overhead lighting, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the vertical half angle, is how high do you have to get before the brightness is half of what it would be from dead ahead straight on. So yeah, in his case, right, if he's going for like a 120-inch screen, the screen height of that is 58.8 inches. So you take half of that height, and then you figure out, okay, you take whatever the vertical half angle is, and you say, how much of an angle can I be above or below that midway point of the screen before it's going to be half as bright? That's basically what that's telling you.
So he asks, what about screen gain? It seems that the ambient light rejecting screens that have a very narrow viewing angle from side to side start with a higher gain, but then rapidly get dimmer as you move to the sides. Meanwhile, screens like the Elite Dark Star 9, which doesn't exist anymore, and Screen Innovations Black Diamond apparently start with a lower gain, but then remain close to the same brightness even as you move to the sides. So which is better?
Depends on where your light is coming from.
Yeah, it's all about where your lights, what direction the light's coming, because that's the as you're moving to that side, just like what you were saying about the Loon Vision one, or the Seymour AV one. If projectors are generally above or below the screen, then you don't want to reject the light coming from above or below the screen as much as the light coming from the sides, because you want that light that's coming from above or below, which gives you good viewing angles above and below. But as soon as you start moving to the sides, you start losing light like crazy. So Therefore, if you're sitting dead on or you're standing up dead on, you got a great image no matter what, if you're sitting or standing. But if you were sitting dead on and then move over 2 feet or 3 feet or 5 feet, suddenly you're going to have completely different
I mean,
images.
generally, if you were, I mean, this would be a weird theater to build, but if you were building a theater from scratch, but it's a case where it has to be a projector and there has to be ambient light, then normally you would probably opt to have it so that you could sit wider from side to side without it looking terrible in the side seats. But to do that, and then you would make sure that all your light is coming from overhead as opposed to any light coming from the sides of the room. But in order to do that, you need to try and get the projector to be as close height-wise to the audience's eyes as you can get, because you don't want it rejecting the light that's coming from the projector that's, you know, mounted high up on your ceiling. You want to make sure that the light that's coming from the projector gets back to your eyes, so it needs to be, you know, close in height to where your eyes are. So that can be a challenge, right? The ambient light rejecting screens are always a challenge.
But don't get a light rejection screen, please.
Not in your set. You don't need it for yours.
Super begging you not to do this.
Yeah.
Like all the money that you were going to spend on the light rejecting screen,
put it towards a light cannon of the projector.
Oh, or just, you know, spend it on that subwoofer. So, recommend. All right, Nick. I guess later on Todd. But anyways, Nick. Nick hasn't upgraded his TV yet, but he figures that when he does, he'll want the best streaming quality possible, including Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos support. I'm sorry about the answer to this question because I'm sure you're not going to like it. He knows we've said that the Apple TV 4K is our top pick, but he has an older Apple TV model and he hates the way its Netflix app performs. What bothers him is that when he's browsing his Netflix My List, it reshuffles the order of everything in the list every time he closes and opens Netflix. Or even when he's just browsing and he clicks on the title to read the synopsis and navigates back to his list. That's irritating. Furthermore, he hates that the cover art keeps changing as well. I don't think that's just the Apple TV.
That's just a Netflix thing. Yeah.
That's a Netflix thing. That they do that so that you'll see a movie for the first time. Like, oh, who's that? Oh,
they try to catch your eye.
Did I see this? I've actually started movies and gone, oh yeah, I already saw this one. Yeah. He's resorted to looking things up on his phone and then just searching on his Apple TV once he's decided. He much prefers the Netflix interface on his Roku 3, but that box has audio glitches when he's using his Onkyo's receiver. You know, all kinds of problems, dude. He knows the Netflix interface is something that can and almost certainly will get updates in the future. But so what should he do? Should he wait and hope that Roku adds Dolby Vision support? Should the Apple TV 4K still be his top choice? Is there a different streaming box that is better than in either of these options? You know what the answer to this question is? Ask us like the second before you're about to buy, because this changes. This changes like week to week. I mean, right now the Apple 4K is looking like the best box out there.
It is the best Netflix external box that you can get because. As far as I know, and now it might be the only external box that wait. So of course the Xbox One S and X now support both Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos from Netflix. But in the case of the Xbox, it doesn't automatically switch audio formats. You know, everything comes out with an Atmos flag out of the Xbox if you do that, whereas at least the Apple TV 4K automatically switches between audio formats. If it's in Atmos from Netflix, you get Atmos coming out of the Apple TV 4K. If it's 5.1, you get 5.1 coming out of the Apple TV 4K, exactly as you would want. And it switches between Dolby Vision and standard dynamic range, and it switches between frame rates as well. So if the viewing experience and the listening experience from Netflix is what you want, the Apple TV 4K right this moment is the best external box to get for that service. The navigation side of it, unfortunately, you kind of got to live with what they give you, because that does change. It's changed multiple times in the time I've been using Netflix. Yeah.
And you're going to find that, like I said, ask us the second before you're going to buy.
Because this could change. Yeah.
This could change by the time this podcast goes live. Honestly.
The Amazon Fire Stick 4K, hardware-wise, supports both Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, but the Netflix app on it doesn't. But that could get updated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So related to this, Todd asked on Twitter, now that the Xbox One S and X have received their Dolby Vision firmware update, does that make them the best 4K HDR and Atmos streaming boxes? No, because
Nope.
Microsoft is never going to fix that audio thing. They are
Apparently not.
never going to fix it.
Not
And
only that, I mean, the only thing that Dolby Vision officially works on right now is Netflix.
Okay.
On the Xbox One S and X. Now, of course, that can get updated in the future as apps get updated. But as we're recording this on October 15th, 2018, the Netflix app is the only thing that does Dolby Vision on the Xbox One S and X. So you can't call it the best 4K HDR streaming box because there's only one service that's true for. And it doesn't handle the audio really properly.
And it's never going to. I've given up. I've given up.
Much.
There's no hope. There's just.
I mean, it can do it. It's just you have to manually switch between Atmos and 5.1. It doesn't automatically do it.
Doing that.
I know.
Not even
a stereo
between Atmos and 5.1. You switch from Atmos and stereo, so you can at least get some up mixing. I hate this.
Right.
Stupid box. All right, Abhue on Twitter. Throwback. If you have an HD DVD player, and Rob does,
I do,
and some HD DVDs, which Rob also does.
Oh yes.
And I just got rid of. I'll be honest with you. I think last year that. I might be wrong. I might still have it. I think I might still have it. I think I got rid of it. And all my HD DVDs, I think I got rid of it. But maybe not. Anyways, if you have an HD DVD player and some HD DVDs, and if those of you who are too young to know what this is, this was the format war with Blu-ray. So when we went from DVDs to Blu-rays, there was HD DVDs came at the same time, and then they were fighting Toshiba and the other ones
for about a year.
And you connect it with a new 4K TV with HDR, just turning on deep color, and the HD DVD player lets you take advantage of the 4K HDR's TV capabilities.
Nope.
Do they have deep color?
They do have a deep color setting. It was never used for anything because what is on the HD DVD discs themselves is 8-bit.
It's still SDR. Yeah.
It's still 8-bit. So the deep color was there as something that could be supported if there ever were 10 or 12-bit sources. But there weren't, so it's useless.
So is there any downsides to daisy chaining a second surround speaker on each side?
Depends on what exactly you mean by daisy chaining.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, sure. If you wire them in parallel, you're asking your amplifier to handle a load maybe it's not capable of.
And when you just say daisy chaining, it makes me think it might be parallel wiring.
Yeah, if you're doing it in series, it's not that big of a deal. There's a cost associated with it. I mean, if you're buying another pair of speakers for sure, so there's that. That's a downside. There is also if the size of your room doesn't really call for it, then you've got two speakers over there doing weirdness. I mean, for me, the downside is the upside of doing this is when you have multiple rows of seats and you're trying to get a nice, side surround for everybody.
Yeah. So that one row of seats, the surround effects aren't coming from in front of that row.
If you have one row of seats with a correctly placed surround speaker, you have everything you need.
Sure.
You have putting a second speaker there or a second speaker in front of you, I guess, or a second speaker even further behind you than that one. I don't think it adds anything. And in fact, I think that would, in a lot of ways, mess up the sound that you're getting. I mean, it's just going to cause another reflection point. And I mean, it's going to make it sound a little bit more diffuse, I suppose. But with Atmos, we're not really going for that anymore. We've gotten away from all of that. Everything's supposed to be, single point of reference.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's necessarily downsides unless you don't need them, in which case why are you doing it?
But I mean, if you have them, I'm not going to go in there and say, oh, you got to take that down because that's hurting what you're doing. I'm like, that's
I'd be like, okay, so that's neat. You got
there's
four speakers stacked on top of each other right there, huh? Is that what you're doing? But you're making a little line array?
I would just say, though, if what you've done is, you ran the red and the black leads from the AV receiver to your first speaker, and then you just connected a speaker wire from the first speaker to the second speaker, that is parallel wiring.
Yeah.
Right. That is the red sides are connected to red and all the black sides are connected to black. That's parallel wiring. You wouldn't probably want to do that. It's not necessarily the end of the world. It depends on the impedance of your speakers. But most speakers dip down to at least 4 ohms, if not down to like 3.2 or something at certain frequencies. And if you wired in parallel, now you've cut that in half. So you could be dealing with like a 2 ohm load at certain frequencies, which most AV receivers are not going to be happy with. So as long as you've wired in series, which is you take the black lead from the AV receiver, it goes to the black input of speaker number 1. You take the red lead from the AV receiver, and that goes to the red input of speaker number 2. And then you connect speaker number 1 and speaker number 2 together with the remaining binding posts. That's wiring it in series, and that will be fine.
All right. So if Tom or Robert is having a guest over and we want to show off our display, what is our go-to movie for doing so? Our display. I did not read this correctly the first time.
Okay.
Our display.
Yeah, you want to show off your projector in your case. In my case, I'd be showing off either my OLED or my Sony Z9D.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I thought this was an audio question, but
Nope.
The answer's the same regardless. I find that the most impressive thing to show somebody is something that they actually want to watch.
Sure.
So I let them choose. And this is one of the reasons why my kids were like, this week, my youngest son finished the Maze Runner book. And my wife was like, oh, we'll watch the Maze Runner movie. And I'm like, we can't. We don't own it. And I thought we did, but we don't. I thought somebody got it for Christmas or something. But they didn't. And we had rented it one time. Because that's how I saw it. And their kids are like, oh, we should buy it. I'm like, I'm not buying it. Well, why not? I'm like, because I don't want that piece of crap movie.
Isn't it
in
on
my collection.
Netflix?
It is not. It's not on anything.
Okay.
I checked all 3 services and that I have here, which is Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon, and you can rent it from Amazon, which is something I'll probably do for him. But I will not buy it because I don't want people to go through my thing and go, oh, look at there's the Maze Runner. I'll watch that. No. No crappy movies up there. I get rid of them all. So I let people choose. That's what I do. Now, there's lots of movies up there that have, really interesting visuals and stuff that I could, maybe use to show some things off. Any of the 4K stuff, obviously, would be great if I had a 4K display, which I do not. So, it's a lot of times it's like pick a Blu-ray and let's just go with that.
All right. I'll give my answer, which is The Martian. That's my go-to right now.
Yeah.
Yep. It's got some great HDR at the beginning, which is very easy to see. And there's also a 3D version. So if I'm doing it on my Z9D, I can do the 3D version too. Same movie.
Ken has a Denon AVR X4000, but now he's upgrading to a 4K HDR TV, and he only has a 5.1 setup. So he's strongly considering a Denon AVR X 3400H. However, his local dealer offered him a discount on the brand new X 3500H for $875. It seemed like a pretty good deal, although the X 3400 is even less expensive than that. So any reason to pay a bit more for the newer model. 3400 versus 3500 on this thing. I don't remember there being any sort of major improvements from last year's models of these year's models. Isn't like all HEOS and stuff.
Very, very, very little has changed, but there's one significant difference between the 3400 and the 3500, and that's the 3500 now has a phono input.
Oh.
So if you've got a record player,
no difference.
that could be entirely a reason. Apparently, the 3500 is pre-programmed to accept more commands from Echo devices. I don't exactly know. That seems like something that should be software updatable, but I don't know. That's what's been said. But other than that, there's essentially no difference. Like they're both going to get eARC via firmware updates. So yeah. Also, you can get the X3500H for $800 directly from Denon. So $875 is not a good deal.
Well, it is considering the market price that you would normally market up.
Yeah. I mean, the MSRP is $1,000, but they're selling it for $800 directly from Denon themselves right now. So if you were going to get the 3500H, I wouldn't spend $75 more to get it. But yeah, unless you really need the phono input, no, save the money and get the 3400.
So his old TV was an LG 55-inch LH90. He wanted a big screen and a picture quality upgrade, so he decided to go with the Samsung 75-inch Q9FN.
It's a very nice TV.
Being a Samsung, it does HDR10 Plus, but it does not do Dolby Vision. So he's trying to figure out which Ultra HD Blu-ray player to pair with it. Does he need an HDR10 Plus player? Can the Samsung Q9 FN turn regular HDR10 into HDR10 Plus on its own? Searching for an HDR10 Plus player led him to the Panasonic UB820. Is that his best choice? Is that his best choice?
Well, if you're in North America, it is the only one you can buy right this second that does HDR10 Plus.
There's going to be so much stuff just coming out, though. Now that we've got the IMAX thing, too, it's going to be like a deal.
Right. Well, there's your first discs that actually are in HDR10 Plus. So so there's that. They do exist. Now, if you wait a little bit, the Panasonic UB420 is supposed to be coming out at some point in North America. I don't exactly know when, but it's supposed to be. And the difference there is that the 820 does both HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision, whereas the 420 only does HDR10 Plus. And of course, they both do regular HDR10. So since you don't need Dolby Vision, there's no reason to spend more on the 820 other than if you want it right this second, because you can't seem to get the 420 in North America yet.
So the Dolby Vision is not firmware. It's a hardware. I thought it was firmware. So at some point, Samsung could decide to do Dolby Vision, right?
Well, I mean, probably not. I mean, there's a hardware version and there is kind of a software version, but you need a lot of processing power if it's the software version.
Right. Okay.
So in players, it's usually built into the chip, which Samsung isn't doing. So I mean, so answer one of the questions, there is no way to turn regular HDR10 into HDR10 Plus. No. HDR10 Plus is that the software, the movie itself has been encoded using HDR10 Plus, and now you need to play it back. There's no way to turn static metadata HDR10 into dynamic metadata HDR10 Plus. What you can do is like what LG does on their OLEDs, or what Sony now does on their newest A9F OLED, which is to analyze the HDR10 signal on the fly and change it inside of the display. They call that active HDR. But that's a completely different thing. That's just inside of the display. And it still isn't HDR10 Plus. It's just a different way of handling regular HDR10. So if you want to play back I don't know how many discs are ever going to come out in HDR10 Plus, but apparently IMAX enhanced ones will. So if you want to play those discs in HDR10 Plus, then you do need a player that handles HDR10 Plus. The Panasonics seem like the obvious choice. If you're willing to wait, the 420 will cost less than the 820. That's all of that.
So he mostly still gets physical Blu-ray discs from Netflix. Will his choice of Ultra HD Blu-ray player make a big difference in the picture quality?
Not from regular Blu-rays.
No. I mean, not for regular Blu-rays. I mean, they're just going to look the same. I mean, they're just going to be bigger.
Yeah, so not from regular Blu-rays. I will say, since you're getting this really nice 75-inch 4K HDR display, look into rent4k.com, because Netflix right now doesn't rent out Ultra HD Blu-rays in their disc by mail service, but rent4k.com does. So that's a way to rent Ultra HD Blu-rays by mail.
All right. Okay, so this comes from a listener who I guess is from Twitter. Is that Twitter? Is this what this person
No,
is
it was an email, but this is the only identifying name I had.
Oh, the only identifying name on this email was CRP, SEA, as in the C,
yes,
and then a capital R, and then a new word, PEA, like a pea that you eat, right?
Yes.
I guess Jonathan as well. These two people
we're combining a few because they're very similar.
Okay, first couple of comments from CRP says that they found AVRant after Home Theater Geeks got canceled. Sorry. And they quickly decided to support us via Patreon. Yay! And subscribe to us on YouTube. Yay! Okay, one thing that we mentioned just in passing is how your two ears might have different size openings, so it's perfectly okay to use two different size ear tips on your in-ear monitors. That was an aha moment for CRP. Guess what, dude? When I came up with it, it was the aha moment for me. I was like sitting there struggling with one falling out and then the other one falling out and another one being fine. And I switched the ear tips on both of them and I put them in. And then the one that was fine before is now falling out and the other one is fine. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I finally went, oh, wait a second here. Let me just switch these. I don't have to use the same size ear tips. That was so crazy.
They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. You might not be.
That's right. So why on earth, he asks, or she asks, we don't know what kind of gender
I
CRP
don't.
subscribes
That is
to.
not a gender specific name whatsoever.
That's right. Why on earth do we have to adjust our volume settings so much? We have all this fancy HDR video processing and decoding for a zillion Atmos speaker positions, but if you switch between Xbox, a Roku, and a laptop, they all put different volume levels. Even if you just switch between different apps on one device, you get different volume output levels. And even if you just use one app on one device, you might get different volume levels from show to show. With so much processing power at our fingertips, why isn't there a simple way to say, this is the level I want for this for dialogue? This is as quiet as everyone want this to be for whispers. This is as loud as everyone to be for explosions. Now apply those levels to everything I listen to. And along similar lines, Jonathan and his wife recently watched Melancholia on Blu-ray. I have never heard of this. What is this, a movie?
That's a Kirsten Dunst movie. That's all I know about it.
I like Kirsten Dunst. He found that the soundtrack had an extremely large dynamic range. The opening prologue uses overture from Wagner's Tristan und Tristan Isolde. I can't say that. And the crescendo at the end was deafening. His wife exclaimed that it was way too loud, so he turned it down. But then there were people whispering the dialogue, so he had turned back up. Jonathan is perfectly fine with the massive dynamic range, but he's aware he could use Odyssey's dynamic volume or some other method of dynamic range compression. But what surprised and annoyed him a bit is that the whispering was so quiet in this particular movie that he actually ended up turning up the volume even higher than where he had it to begin with. And then, of course, the crescendo at the end of the movie was at end of the world levels.
Yeah.
So basically, finding the appropriate volume level was a matter of trial and error, and that doesn't really seem to be a way to know beforehand if your selected volume level will end up being a bit too quiet for some of the softest sounds. So could movies maybe include some sort of calibration options you could run before the movie begins, maybe play the quietest part of the movie so you can adjust it before the movie starts, and then offer offer the loudest part of the movie too, so that you'll know whether you need to turn the dynamic volume on or not, or just list how much louder the loudest part of the movie is going to be. He hates the distraction of having to adjust the volume while the movie is playing. Is he alone in this? Well, apparently not.
No, you're definitely not alone.
So A Quiet Place, which is the movie I just bought, and I really liked quite a bit. It has a fairly large dynamic range because everybody's got to be quiet because of the things. So when the sounds are loud, they're really freaking loud. But it's part of the movie. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I have very rarely experienced. Now, what you're talking about here, the differences, or what RP in Cincinnati or whatever his name is, he or she was describing between different like apps and stuff like that. Totally true. And yes, it's a little irksome. Like, I know when I'm on YouTube, I need to -30. Right. On the Xbox, I know when it's on Netflix, it's -15. I know when it's on Hulu, it's -5. I know when I'm watching a Blu-ray or an Ultra HD Blu-ray and my wife is asleep, it's -10 to 12. When she's not asleep, it's -3 to 5. Right. I usually keep it around those levels. I just know that. Is it irritating? Yes. What are you gonna do? Is there something that can be done? Probably, but who cares? I mean,
and even those general rules of thumb that you have, those aren't 100%. There are exceptions in all of those, right?
One device, switch devices, and everything goes out the window. I got to do it all over again.
So like Jonathan says, it ends up kind of being trial and error depending on the exact thing you happen to be watching. Yeah, that's true.
Now, I'll be honest with you. The movie that he's talking about, though, I think that's poor mixing. I mean, I really do. I mean, to have that massive a dynamic range.
Yeah. And I mean, there are people commenting out there about just how quiet the whispers are. They're like, this is absurdly quiet, right? Yeah. Which either means maybe you weren't really even supposed to be able to make out what they were saying. That might have even been the intention, or they mastered it in an exceedingly quiet room that basically nobody's home environment matches, right? Where the ambient noise level was so low where they mastered it that they could hear it, at regular reference volume. But anybody at home is like, no, but just, the fact that I'm in a normal house, it's too loud, the ambient noise, to make out these whispers, and then I get my ears blasted off when it plays the crescendo. Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, basically, Dolby tried to address this. This is what Dolby's dialogue normalization is entirely about. The whole idea was that anything that was encoded in a Dolby audio signal, whether that was regular Dolby Digital or when they went to Dolby Digital Plus or True HD or now Atmos, all of those can use Dolby's dialogue normalization. And the whole idea was that there's supposed to be a bit of code in there that says this is the average dialogue level that gets normalized across everything that you watch with a Dolby audio signal. And then it says, okay, the loudest thing is this much louder than that level, the quietest thing is this much quieter, but it all kind of balances out because it's based on the average dialogue level. That's exactly what Dolby was trying to do. The problem is not everything uses Dolby, and even the stuff that does use Dolby doesn't necessarily use their dialogue normalization. So they put the thing out there, but nobody is obligated to use it. I mean, there is a standard, right? We have reference volume. This is a standard, but not everything uses it. YouTube certainly doesn't.
Clearly. Yeah. I hate YouTube. I mean, I watch YouTube like almost constantly. I hate it. It is so irritating how like the commercials are so loud, and it seems like the content creators just cannot get their volume level correct.
Yeah.
I don't know how ours sounds, to be honest with you, but
I try to make it even, at least from episode to episode, so if people are watching them back to back, they're not having jumps in volume. But I don't painstakingly do that, so there definitely could be differences from video to video.
Yeah. But I mean, yes, you could turn on something like Odyssey's dynamic volume and try to
well, I mean, again, Dolby's dynamic range thing that they call Dolby Volume, I always thought that did the best job of this. Yeah. But it is compressing the dynamic range somewhat, so you're no longer hearing exactly what was on the recording. But essentially what people are saying is exactly what's on the recording isn't always pleasing, is it?
All right. I really just think that this what he's describing with this one particular movie is just poor mixing.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a case where maybe you do want to turn on dynamic volume. That could really help you with this one particular thing. But both
get the right volume and then turn on subtitles. So
right, yeah, which some people resort to. But both CRP and Jonathan are asking, is there some way we could set things up beforehand so that while we're watching the thing, we don't have to, ride the volume rocker, right? Is there some way we could adjust this beforehand? I mean, both of these suggestions, which are rather similar, these do seem like kind of reasonable things to be done. I wouldn't hold my breath for any of it to happen, but I quite like these suggestions. That would actually make a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, I just think that there should be a standard set and it should be followed by everybody.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, the closest we can get is Dolby's dialogue normalization plus something like Dolby Volume or Odyssey Dynamic Volume. That's the closest we can get to it, but it by no means solves the issue that you're describing.
Right. 7.2, he says, I don't know who says this.
This is Jonathan,
Jonathan. Even though it doesn't have any overhead or height speakers, is officially an Atmos compatible speaker configuration, correct? So if you're using a 7.2 speaker setup, what happens to the overhead sounds? Do they just get played out of the front, left, and right, and surround back speakers? Yeah.
For the most part, yes. Yeah. There's a little bit of phase and sometimes a tiny little bit of reverb going on in some other speaker channels because they're still trying to create the illusion that the sound is coming from overhead. So it's not necessarily like, what would have played out of your, top rear speaker is strictly coming out of your surround back speaker now. It's not necessarily one-to-one like that, but yes, more or less.
They're going to use phase between more, the different speakers to try to put that sound back up there, which is what they would have done in the 7.2 soundtrack anyhow. So.
That's right. Yeah, if they had just mixed it in 7.2 to begin with. But 7.2 is an Atmos compatible speaker configuration. If that's what you've set up is 7.2, all of your speakers at the floor level, but you play a disc that has Dolby Atmos on it, you will see Dolby Atmos come up on the front of your AV receiver. It won't down mix it to some other format. And then, you will still hear all of the sounds. They just might not be as precisely placed as if you had physical speakers above you.
So this is CRP in Cincinnati. We've done a few interviews, and CRP thought they were good and comparable to what the home theater geeks offered, which apparently they miss very much. Could we do more of those? I mean, technically, yes. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, I am a member of a Facebook group. I don't know how I got invited to it. It's a podcasters group, right? And it's all these people who are just starting off with podcasts, and almost all of them are doing interviews.
Right.
That's all it is. It's podcasts with two random dudes drinking whiskey and talking about whatever they want to talk about, or interviews within a niche of society. And I've got no problems with those podcasts, but invariably the complaints are Setting up guests is difficult. They
Yes.
don't, they cancel on you, technical glitches.
Yes.
How do I get them to have good equipment so that whatever, should I send them equipment? Should I do this? It is a pain. So are we okay right now, because my new job, my new business, I am more capable of doing interviews than I have been. Rob's job is much more structured than mine, so he's less capable than I am. But we can normally do stuff like that. Will we do it? Sure. If the opportunity presents itself, I got no problems doing interviews on this podcast. We've done it before. I would do it again.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, certainly. I'm not like rejecting interviews. No way, no.
I
wish I could do more.
I'm uninterested in actively pursuing them. Is what it really comes down to.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of prep. There are the technical glitches to come over, the scheduling hurdles. I mean, I was blown away by Home Theater Geeks week after week, because I'm like, holy crap, the amount of work that Scott must have put into that, and his producer John, who did a lot behind the scenes. Like, the amount of work that went into that, I'm like, there's no way I could do it. Not did they do lack of desire.
Did they do call-ins or did they do face-to-face?
Oh no, they were face-to-face. They were basically on Skype.
Okay.
You know, but I mean, not for lack of desire on my part. It's just for lack of time, and really just time. So yeah, I mean, I miss Home Theater Geeks a lot too. I really loved when they were on, because I was like, this is a fantastic, like, not counter. What am I looking for? Co-podcast to ours, right? We offered different things. I learned a ton from listening to Home Theater Geeks, so I miss it very much. But yeah, turning AV Rant into something more similar to Home Theater Geeks, or adding to AV Rant to make it, also Home Theater Geeks, it's just beyond the time resources that I have. Nothing else.
Yeah. Right. And it like I said, it's fine. I mean, occasionally we're going to have an opportunity to do stuff like that, and when we do, I will be happy to do it.
Yeah.
But
the times that we have, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yes, it's a lot of work, and invariably, I don't think we've ever done an interview that didn't have a little bit of a technical glitch at some point. And it's, it's always been sort of an issue, and editing becomes much harder on every side.
Now,
and
if somebody wants to give us infinity dollars per month, then
I'll interview
then
the
heck
heck out of some peoples. Yeah. we'll be interviewing all the peoples. I'll interview them to start with. Like, where did you get your infinity dollars? And thank you for giving it to us. All right. That's going to be it for this week. Rob,
really?
we're only going to do 5 questions. We did 8.
I know.
Those
We've left more than half, but a lot of that is my fault and Google's fault. I'm blaming mostly.
That's not really your fault, but at the same time, those questions were really long. So saying that we only answered 8 questions, it's not fair. So what do we got left?
Whoa, we got a ton. So Josh S., Chris H., Luke K., Terry G., John D., Ilongo, and David C., who both asked very similar questions, so I combined them. Brandon M., Miles W., and that was it. So, yeah, we made it.
Those questions have always got to be a lot shorter than...
Those are all a lot shorter, but yes.
Yeah. Okay, when we have questions through G and H, I don't want to hear that we didn't answer very many. All right. Lastly, let's once again thank our listeners of the week. I want to thank Brandon for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and leaving us a PayPal donation, as well as our 73 patrons over at patreon.com. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, patrons.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you very much for that PayPal donation, and patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up for a automatic monthly donation to us. And thanks very much to our 73 patrons over there.
Lastly, we'll thank Sean for talking us up to RBH. Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, Sean, congrats on that R515 center speaker purchase, and thanks very much for talking us up to RBH.
If you want to get your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
They canceled Iron Fist.
Yeah, they did cancel Iron Fist.
What's up with that, man? They finally did it right.